What's up, Disrupt Nation? So we have a very, very special guest for you guys today. She is a woman in tech, breaking stereotypes and taking names. Without a technical background, she hustled her way into tech and redefined what it means to be a multi-passionate, creative woman in tech. By day, she is a product designer at IDT. And by night, she is inspiring people with her designs on Instagram. She runs a Facebook group focused on product design, UX, UI, and web and Black women in tech. And she hosts local meetups at Dev Noir. She is just a ray of sunshine in the tech space. We've been friends on Instagram for a while, going back and forth trying to get her on the show. And her name is Lenora Porter. Lenore, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, and thank you so much for that introduction.
Absolutely. So how did you get started in tech? I know that you come from without a technical background, without a traditional background. So tell us a little bit more about how you got started.
So way back, let's go back to like elementary school. My father used to purchase so many video games for me. I would play almost every game imaginable, right? So I'll spend my time drawing the characters out and trying to figure out how do I make the character move, and I'll, create a little running board of animations and things like that. And after a while, my dad said, do you know there's people out there that make a lot of money doing what you just did? And I'm like, so what is it called? He's like, I don't know, but as I know it's tech. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to try to do that. And throughout middle school, I tried to get into those, the tech schools. Either they were too expensive or they were too far. High school, same thing. I tried to get in, same issue. College, same thing. Tried to get in.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami, Florida, Miami Gardens, which is a very low socioeconomic area. Known for a lot of things that's not great, but at the same time, I love my city. A lot of
things, but not tech, right?
Yeah, definitely not tech. Most definitely not tech. I love my city, yes, but it did not prepare me to, get into this tech, field. Mm-hmm. So, I went through college. I tried to do the computer science degree. Yeah, that didn't work. I failed miserably. After that, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to graduate with a degree called I can't even say it right. Family, Youth, and Community Sciences. So basically that's like a psychology, sociology degree. And to me, looking back now, it was the best degree I could have ever gotten in regards to getting into tech. It taught me so much about people, about human behavior, about tech itself that I didn't realize was a part of tech. So it's kind of weird how we think it's just one path only, but there's so many different ways to get into tech. After that, though, I went to be a teacher, went right back to Miami Gardens, taught ninth graders at a high school for a year. And after that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try one more time to get into tech. After 500 times of failing, I'm going to try one more time. And I went into a coding boot camp, went to WinCode, and to me, long story short, I finally got my first job in tech in 2015. So long story, but kind of short. Short way of saying it.
No, super cool. So you're in Miami. It's definitely not known for tech. Mm-hmm. I talk about that a little bit too in my background, how, New York, probably dating myself a little bit, but New York didn't have the kind of tech hub that's now grown, when I was learning to code. So similar where, you're in Miami, there's not really a big tech scene. You're studying computer science in a school that probably barely pays attention to that department.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you land your first role. So what was your first role and how did you land it?
So my first role was user experience design, actually. I was the very first person in my coding boot camp that went that route. Most people went down the front end developer or, full stack developer route. And for some reason, I just said, hey, design. And the way I got into that was, I would say by stalking a VP of a company, going to meetups, looking through the meetup.com site And if I saw let me tell the story correctly. So I wanted to learn how to network, right? I'm like, look, I'm trying to get into jobs. I'm sending my resume. Nothing's happening. I just graduated from this coding boot camp. I paid so much money. Look, I need a job like now because I got to pay the loan back. So I went to a meetup. I looked down the list and I saw this guy. His name was Jeff Fudge. And I'm looking at the name. I'm like, haha, Fudge is his last name. That's so weird, right? And I decided to just Google him and search, things about him. Realized that he worked as a VP of engineering at a company called Sato Global Solutions. So from there, I'm like, maybe they're hiring, coders. So from there, I just kept looking at meetup.com. Every time I saw his name, I would go to that meetup. I'll just, hello, I'm Lenora. Hi, I'm Lenora. It was about maybe 3 or 4 meetups in, and he's like, I know your name. It's Lenora. And I'm like, good job. Finally, you remember me. So I emailed him right after. He emailed back finally. I was emailing him the whole time and didn't get a response until then. And he's like, you should come out to, view my facility to have maybe a company tour. From there, I went to get the experience of looking into an actual company for the very first time, especially a tech company down here in Miami, which I thought didn't even exist. Went into there and I'm like, wow, look at this. There's so much technology. Everything's great, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, I saw the design area and I'm like, design? I didn't think that art was in tech. I'm like, I didn't know that those two worlds collided. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. So maybe I can be this person that I was back in elementary school drawing the characters just like my dad said. I'm like, all right, let me see if I can get this job. And he's like, yeah, we're not hiring designers. And I'm like, oh, okay. That hurt my feelings a little bit. So I'm like, all right, so let me just figure out how I can do this. And after a while, I think the manager on the design team said, hey, I think we should give her a chance. And long story short, he finally allowed me to come in for a formal interview. I came in, nailed it, and he said, yeah, let's do it. Welcome aboard. And got my first job by stalking.
By stalking, there you go.
Yep.
So like the people skills from the college kind of kicked in there a little bit.
Oh yes, a whole lot. It really helped out. And also being from Miami Gardens, little do you know, like it's so many people that's so friendly. Your neighbors are friendly. You grow up with each other. So I kind of knew how to talk up for myself because I had to. But outside of that, yeah, definitely college helped.
Very cool. So you land your first role and you were kind of creative as a child, but had you done any like app design or web design or anything like that prior?
So most of my design work was more animation when I was in college. So I did take all the animation classes. High school, I always painted, drew. I was the leader of the art community there at my high school. So art was always with me. The thing is, I never, ever used Photoshop. I never, ever used Sketch to create app designs. I didn't do any of that. So that was my very first time having to go in Photoshop and design. At the time, Photoshop was a thing. Sketch is now the big tool to use. But
So you handle your first client at Under Armour, and then I would imagine you had like some people giving you some sort of guidance or mentorship along the way.
Definitely. Jeff Fudge, of course, same guy. I would be in his office almost every day with so much imposter syndrome. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. He's like, no, you can. I've seen your work. It's good. Let's keep going. I also had a very awesome boss. Her name was Lisa Pilot. And she would walk through a lot of different steps with me, very slow. It's like, okay, so here's how to build UIs for iOS. There's a difference between iOS and Android, and here are the Android guidelines, and here are the iOS guidelines, and this is where you find them. And these are inspiration sites like Dribbble and UpLabs and all the other sites that she mentioned. And this is the way we create in Photoshop. And you have to create certain dimensions for certain toolbars and UI kits. And she just named it all. I mean, just laid it all on me every day from the first day all the way to the last. She just kept drilling me with different aspects of design and how I should learn it. And even if she didn't teach me something, I was always Googling or going to Envision. There's a awesome blog. There's so many different podcasts that I was listening to, books I was reading. I was really trying my best to get good at design. So put my all into it.
Absolutely. So you're learning, you have mentors, and you're really learning from the internet. And one of the things that I think people overlook is that even if you went to college for computer science or you went to college and studied design exclusively, you would still have to be doing all those same things. Yep. You would still probably take some Udemy courses. When Sketch came out, you still would have had to learn it new for the first time. You still would have had to maybe review those guidelines that you were talking about. There's still all this learning that happens. So people think that you get a degree and it's some sort of magic bullet. But in a lot of ways, the traditional education does not prepare you for the practicality of being in tech. Like, tech is changing every 10 minutes. So you have to be in this constant state of learning. And it's not like you learn the things once and then you stop. You had to, constantly be evolving and adapting and things of that nature.
I agree with that. And, I know a lot of people usually ask me, oh, Lenora, did you get a college degree from this? Especially on Instagram, everyone assumes that my coding bootcamp taught me UX. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that you went to WinCode and they taught you a UX and they taught you how to get a job. And I'm like, man, if only you knew I didn't get help. While I was there, yes, I learned coding, but I did not learn UX. That is two different worlds, and it should be one world, but it's two different worlds. And I learned that by going on Udemy, going on online courses and learning kind of on my own and using help of mentors. But if people did understand that, I think there would be less debt. Definitely less debt in the world. People spending way too much time trying to collect all these degrees and
less imposter syndrome.
Oh my gosh, yes.
More than just the debt, and the debt is a whole other bubble that we could probably dive into a whole episode about, right? Yes. But all the people who, they feel like I didn't get the right degree, or I didn't get a degree so I can't do X, or I didn't get this degree so I can't do Y. And the funny thing is, even when you talk to people at all levels, there's all different levels of imposter syndrome that people are dealing with, and really just getting out of that mindset and knowing that you can believe in yourself, and having other people that believe in you around you that support you, I think is huge. So tell me a little bit more about now, how did you get into coding? Because I see there's like some HTML, some CSS stuff that you've done in the past. So how did you go from Photoshop now to actually playing with some HTML?
So before any of my design work, I went to that coding bootcamp, and it taught me a lot of the HTML, CSS, JavaScript aspects, but it didn't really focus too much on there. My coding bootcamp taught me Ruby on Rails. And at the time in Miami, Ruby on Rails was kind of like, why did you just learn that? You spent $10,000 to learn Ruby on Rails? You're dumb.
What coding bootcamp did you go to?
I went to WinCode. So,
okay, cool.
Going into those interviews and saying, I know Ruby on Rails, and seeing the recruiter look at me like, yeah, so that's not going to help you here. And
yeah, about that.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? I spent money. So anyway, I had to, the same process, go to Udemy, go to Linda, try out things on CodePen and learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript myself. And from there, I asked my boss, the same guy, Jeff Fudge, hey, would you be okay if I start sitting with the developers sometimes? Because I really think I'm really good at this thing and I really want to get better. And I think if I work with them, I could get better. He's like, yeah, of course. Go ahead. He was just kind of like, go ahead, learn as much as you can from this company, which was,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. Most people don't get those kind of opportunities. So I sat down with the developers and I started to build out actual UIs. And after a while, I became more of a hybrid. So I'll do all the design work with my design team. And then I'll move on to that middle ground where we didn't really have an HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript person. So I was that person. And I would create all these web applications and look at a lot of different code from templates and recreate things. And what I always tell people, copying is the best way to learn. So anyway, I just want to push that in there a little bit.
Good artists don't copy, they steal.
Thank you. Exactly. So I would do a lot of things. After a while, we had our prototypes up, we'll get them tested. And then of course the real developers will take on from there. But I was that first little prototype, and I was very excited about that because I'm like, that's my code, that's my design. Wow, I'm getting so good at this world here. So yeah,
that's amazing. So you're designing the stuff in Photoshop or later Sketch, and then you're taking it and you're doing the front end. You're being like the front end engineer and kind of prototyping out the CSS and the markup and all of that. That's very cool. And I really think the best designers have some sort of coding experience.
Yes.
I really, really believe that.
Oh my gosh.
Do you follow Dev Tips
yes, I do.
on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah. And not the new Dev Tips. I know the channel got taken over by some European guys, but the original guy, Travis, he's a coding designer, but he's the reason why his designs probably make more sense than just a regular designer is because he knows how the coding works, how the HTML and the CSS works. So now he can design something that makes sense, that's practical. So yeah, no, that's such a great skill, and I love that you went to a coding boot camp. RIP Ruby on Rails, and that really does make you a more effective designer. So tell us a little bit more about your involvement in Black Girls Code, and then now you have your own meetup that you've started in Miami. So tell us more about that.
So I think in 2016, I'm not exactly sure if Black Girls Code came down for just like maybe one event, but I think it was something like that. It was their very first event in Miami. And I'm like, oh yes, I'm there. I went there. I went there and they asked me to be a part of their panel where they interviewed Black women in tech in Miami. And I'm like, okay, cool. When I went there, I met so many other Black women not so many. I wouldn't say like, oh my God, it was just a room full of us. But it was maybe like 5 or 6 that were also in tech in their different ways. So some of them were in medical tech. Others were involved in governmental tech. I was involved in software kind of tech. And it was very interesting, the dynamics that we talked about that were so similar. So I spent my time with them, spent my time talking with the girls and mentoring them in different ways, bringing my art to Black Girls Code because I realized a lot of them loved art, loved fashion. And we would try to mingle and push together both those worlds just so the girls would be interested in coding everything that we came up with. So it was very fun. They don't really have many events right now. Sometimes I'll see events in my email, but I've been so like bogged down with my own little, groups that I don't have much time anymore. But I do post them all the time just so other people can go. But for my group, the way it all came about was last year, 2017. I went to a event called Afrotech. So Afrotech is a huge, diversity, to me, very huge diversity tech event that happens in California. And I'm like, all right, I'll go. And when I tell you it's the first time I've ever been in a room with people that look like me, act like me, I mean, it was so many different faces, but we all kind of grew up similar, and it's so funny being around that, being involved in that kind of environment, listening to how they deal with tech, how they deal with diversity, how they deal with things that I don't get to hear all the time. I go to so many tech conferences and I never really get to hear stories that I could kind of take home and use. It's kind of like, this is how I dealt with diversity, but it's just not the same type of issues I have. So, it was pretty hard going to those conferences. But at this particular conference, Afrotech, it was definitely like, I'm writing down all this information. I'm going back home and I'm going to do this. I'm like, goals on goals on goals. I'm ready. So I went back to Miami and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to build a group just like that. It may not be on that scale, but I think at least we should know each other. Miami is a place where there's so many different cultures and so many definitions of being Black. So you have the Jamaicans, you have the Black Americans, you have the Haitians, you have the Caribbean Indians, you have the Puerto Ricans, you have so many different people that represent Afro Latino, Afro culture. And I'm like, why are we not in the same room sometimes? Just one time out of the year or something. I just want to see y'all so I'll know you exist. And that's it, And I'm like, I should create, if I don't see it, create it, Lenora. Stop complaining about what you don't see, create it. So I created a little group and I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be like 2 or 3 members. And within a week or 2, we had 56 members. And I'm like, wait a minute. I wasn't ready. Wait, flag on a play. I wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility. But honestly, it's the best thing I've done so far. We've been doing so many great things. I'm pushing my front end knowledge because of them. So many things they're teaching me in my way. So we've been using like Cardi B lyrics, and I recently did a Instagram story about promises, JavaScript promises, and we did it using Sierra's relationships. So she's with Russell, and we created. It was so funny, but we understood. It's like, yeah, we know her story. We know she were dealing with 50 Cent, and then she went with Future for a little while, had a baby, and the way we did it with promises, it's kind of like callbacks. So you have to create blocks. So the blocks were her previous relationships. Anyway, it's a long story, but we had so much fun.
Broken promises.
Yeah, it was just nothing but broken promises. I'm like, wow, this is great. But everyone in the room was laughing. We were having fun, and it was so entertaining, but we were learning at the same time. So
no, that's really the best way to learn, is to have things that you can relate to in real life. Absolutely. We're creating a tutorial, like a coding 101 online course, and one of the guys on our team, he was using the Wu-Tang Clan. Yes. I think it was awesome. like all the members of the Wu-Tang Clan in an array or something.
That is awesome. And we need more of that, because I feel like the way, if you read books sometimes, and if you read things on Instagram or the internet, sometimes it seems like they're using language that will push people out that don't understand in that way. So I'm like, man, we just need somebody like us to translate that, just so we can understand too. And
well, one of the other problems that I think there is with the quote unquote like diversity in tech movement is, and I don't know if it's intentional. Like, I don't think there's malice involved in a lot of these decisions or things that are happening, but like, people almost have to whitewash themselves and change who they are to join a certain company.
Yeah.
Right. And I've experienced that myself. Like, I have to like, speak differently and talk differently and pretend like I don't listen to hip hop and all this stuff because, you're trying to assimilate. Like a friend of mine, he has all these buddies that work at Google, and he's friends with like every single black guy that works at Google, and he said that they all wear polos to work. And like, he's like, let the white guys that work at Google, they can wear the t-shirts, but we're wearing polos every fucking day because like, we don't want to be judged negatively.
Yep.
So it's almost like you have to go to the other extreme. Like, everyone else at Google is allowed to wear a t-shirt, but all the minorities are wearing polos and button-ups because they don't want to be judged that they're too urban, or they're too X, they're too Y, or they're too Z.
There.
And the crazy thing is that, like, I don't know, I'm like a baby of the internet. My mother was a computer programmer in the 80s.
Wow.
And like, I had the internet when I was like in 2nd grade, like dial-up, like. And at that time, like, it wasn't mainstream. It wasn't the biggest companies in the world, tech companies. There's all these, people in their garages and startups, and before they were even called startups, but they were startups.
Yeah.
And it really was agnostic of any sort of race, religion, or creed. It was like either you created something good or you didn't.
Exactly.
You know, and it didn't. I mean, I think it was because the internet was so slow you couldn't even upload a profile picture.
Yeah.
But it was all about like being anonymous, but not only being anonymous, but being judged on your character and not your race or your nationality or your creed. And it was like either you could code or you couldn't. Either you could hack or you couldn't. Either you created something valuable and you put it online or you didn't. And I think now there is, as Google goes from being a startup to a corporation, as Facebook goes to, you know, a bunch of college kids in a dorm to a corporation, I think there is, instead of like inclusion, because inclusion still feels like a word where it's like it's still separate, right? It's like being in a bubble or something. I think maybe the word that we could look for is oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Like not compassion, just like I don't know. Did you get what I'm saying? Like how inclusion is sort of like you're still on the outside, but like we'll let you sit at the lunch table.
Yeah. And I mentioned that on Twitter one time. I said, you know, everyone wants a seat at the table, and I would care less about that. I would like influence at the table. I would like my voice heard at the table. It's plenty of tables I've been at, and I was able to sit there, but couldn't say a word. And what is the purpose of me being there? I see a problem and I can't even voice it. Like I can't say anything. I'm sitting here. I know that this may become a problem for a certain group of people, but I can't even voice it because, you know, it's playing. Okay, let me create an example. I like saying examples. So there's a UI we were building, and the UI was for people that wanted to try on glasses virtually. So you stand in front of this mirror and it'll put these glasses on you. And my boss wanted to create like a, I don't want to say a constraint, but some kind of like use case where it'll look at your skin color or figure out your skin color and pick a certain color glasses for you, right? And I'm just like,
what could go wrong?
So I'm just like, here we go with the BS. I knew it was coming. I knew it. I knew I had to prepare for this moment. What do I say, right? So I said, you know, I don't understand how skin color could help you pick glasses. There's so many people that love all colors. So why do I have to choose a color based on my skin color? What would go well with my color? I don't get it. So she's like, yeah, you know, some people, they don't want to go through all those choices. They just want things to be, you know, given to them. So you'll pick a color for them. And I'm like, I think that's going a little too far. I think we definitely like choices. And no, I don't agree. Anyway, the application went on and that was the feature in the app, right? A long story short, because, you know, of course, my voice wasn't heard. So long story short, it went on, and the executives on the other client team said, oh, why is this feature in here? We need to get this out. It took someone else on their level to say the same thing I already said. We could have kept so much development time, so much design time to make sure that wasn't in the app. But no, we wasted time. We showed these clients that we're basically racist. And now we're here trying to beg pardon, basically, to apologize for putting certain things that shouldn't have even been put in there if you listen to your junior designer. But anyway, if you listen to me, it wouldn't even been here. So it's just, I know what you're talking about. I know you have to be someone else just to sit there and be a part of this elite team, but you're kind of not even being yourself while you're there.
So what was it? Because and correct me if I'm wrong. It sounded like you kind of said something, but you didn't like take a stand about it.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you kind of, I guess, reluctant or hesitant to really, really take a stand and, you know, and say, yeah, no, this is not a good idea.
Well, number one, I was a junior designer at the time, so to me, you know, your boss or your manager, your UX director is the final say. So no matter what you would say, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's their final decision. Second, everyone hates that racist word. No one wants to be called racist. No one wants to be in conversations where they have to, you know, say that they are, they're not.
Well, I think that word is, I don't know if that's the right word for the situation.
Oh no, it's not.
I think like it might be like biased, you know, or there's something like, because racism is like a very extreme thing. It means like, you know, maybe wanting to harm people and having some sort of malice intent. I think in this particular scenario, it sounds like more of like, you know, an ignorance, like like he's not thinking that, hey, you know, this might affect people in a negative way, you know.
Go ahead.
And I think that happens a lot, and I think we have to really, like, across the board, just be careful with the language that we use and approach situations so that we can create allies rather than go to war, right?
Definitely. And I think,
and I feel like it's almost like either I'm scared to confront it, or then I have to like just attack. And I don't think your boss was like, you know, fuck everyone who has dark skin, I'm just going to create this app. No. I think he thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, and that's another reason that you brought up, another reason why I didn't want to say anything, because I didn't know the right vocabulary or the right way to go about it. It's kind of like, I don't want to call anyone names and say things that I don't really mean in that way. When you don't know how to really voice what you want to say,
sometimes it comes out wrong, right?
So I'm like, don't say anything. Let someone else say something that could talk her language or whatever. I don't know. I'm just gonna say it wrong, so I'm just gonna be quiet because I'm not there yet. I don't know how, and I'm going through that even now. I don't know how to fight race-related issues in a corporate space yet. Even now, I still struggle with it. And when it comes up, of course, I freeze up and I'm like, wait, no, I'm not ready. You know, I'm like, oh man, why am I here again? So I really need, for myself, I need to figure out how to bring up those conversations to my manager or to my boss to let them know, hey, you know, I think you're about to cross the line. Yeah, I know it's invisible. You can't really see it, but I know where the line is. So I'm telling you now that this may be a problem. I still don't know how to do it. So that's definitely one of the other reasons why I'm like, not today, Satan.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, before I was talking about like a word like to replace inclusion, and I still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But like the opposite of being judgmental.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think the problem is people judging other people based on the way they talk and the way they look, and not like the character of their ideas, right? And like the black guys that work at Google, they shouldn't feel like they can't wear a t-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm going to be perceived in a certain way because I speak up out about a feature, right? And I think, you know, the stigmas that exist are very, very subliminal. But it all boils down to just like not being judgmental and just judging people based on their ideas, and not necessarily, you know, the way they say them, or the way they dress, or the way they look, or, you know, whatever, the type of music they listen to, or whatever those things are. And I do think that tech is probably one of the most liberal in that space. You know, like you can have red hair and you can, you know, kind of be who you want to be. And I don't think, I think as far as like, you know, at least at the mid level and most startups and things of that nature, there is tons of diversity. We had an event in New York City, and we had a trans person speak about tech and diversity, and they you know, they had a job at a very respectable company, and and this was a few years ago where the stigma around that was probably even worse,
Yeah.
right? So I do think tech is a very liberal space, but then again, it's like Facebook, like eventually they do just become another giant corporation. And that's where I think there still is, a lot of traditional
Oh yeah.
hierarchies, where like I'm sure there's product managers at Facebook that might have green hair
Yeah.
or something, but like at the very top of these huge companies, I don't think there is a lot of that. And when there are minorities, they're kind of placed there strategically, and not even strategically like, okay, well, let's make sure like our CTO is diverse. It's like, no, they invent a role. It's like chief diversity officer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we're going to give someone a C-level title for being diverse.
Yes.
And I don't know. It feels forced. It's like, why can't we just stop judging people and just judge people on their merits rather than this forced inclusion? Okay, 1 in 10 applicants we're going to look at, or whatever. I don't know. And again, I don't think it's malice, right?
Yeah.
My friends over at Twilio, they have a whole program that's designed to hire boot camp graduates,
Awesome.
right?
Okay.
And it's super cool, and it's designed to look at people from non-traditional backgrounds, which a lot of the time are minorities, but that's a certain program, and like Microsoft has that too, but that's a very specific program. Like, why can't every single job just judge you based on your resume and based on your interview and based on X, Y, and Z, instead of saying like, well, 99% of our jobs, you need a computer science degree and you need to be Ivy League, and X, Y, and Z, you need to go to Harvard or one of these 4 top schools. And if not, we're shredding your resume, except we have this one little weird program where, we hire 100 people to say that we're diverse and we're doing inclusion, right? So yeah, I think like making inclusion just be mainstream, making that just be business as usual, so that it's not a separate department that has to run, parallel.
I agree. And I think, tech is becoming more, well, I don't say more of that place, but I think slowly but surely, as many people start to get in, start making changes, it's going to slowly but surely get to that lane. Because recently I had an interview with someone, and she told me that she did not believe in culture fit. And I was kind of like, what does that mean? Why don't you believe in that? And she's like, to me, culture fit is pushing more of that, that the issue that we've already been having with diversity. You want them to fit in to this, this popular or elite kind of status, when we should have culture add instead. And I'm like, oh, I like the way you're thinking. I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way. She's like, yeah, I would really want to focus on culture add, just so I can get those kind of conversations started that I don't know about, or I can get those people to tell me that maybe I'm doing something wrong that I didn't know I was doing. So she focused more on that culture add piece. And I think if we continue pushing different conversations and having conversations, especially me trying to figure out how to talk about those conversations, would be what needs to happen. What needs to happen to push that change? We have to think about it on both sides, not just, we want them to change. It's like we all need to change our approach to the situation. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, there's tons of, like I said, really big tech companies that are taking these things seriously. But I like that. I like the whole culture add rather than culture fit, because that's saying, oh, do you fit a certain, a certain stereotype, honestly. Yeah. And, companies really need to come up with their own cultures as well. And that's something that we focused on a lot at Disrupt. One of them, we were talking about dress code earlier. We have Disrupt shirts. That's it. You wear the Disrupt shirt, and it's a t-shirt, and it's comfortable, and and that's what everybody's wearing, right? So now you don't have that stigma of, am I wearing a button up, or am I wearing whatever? Well, I was at a company few years back, a digital agency, and the kid was wearing T-shirts, but I think he was like wearing T-shirts that like didn't fit. I don't know. It looked weird.
Okay.
And so people said something to him. He's like, "Oh, well, if I worked at Google, I could wear a T-shirt, right?"
Oh man.
So like to avoid a lot of those things, like like putting policies in place and then creating your own culture and letting people be a part of it,
Yeah.
right? So rather than you have to fit the culture to come into the door, at Disrupt, we have our 5 brand values, which are influence, leadership, impact, legacy, and then disruption. And we want people to fall into those and grow those skills, right? So you don't have to have leadership skills when you come in the door. No, we want to train you into how to improve your leadership, how to improve your integrity, how to improve your influence in the world. And so rather than like trying to fit them into your culture before you let them in the door, figuring out if they're willing to grow as human beings, and then if they are, having a culture that is adaptive and that rubs off on the people that are around you. Rather than, this whole, it really, it feels like the lunch table. It feels like you can't sit with us.
Yep.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so back to your story. So this first company, this is a digital agency.
So that's the funny part about that whole thing. It felt like an agency because we were doing so many different client work, but it turned into more of a, okay, let's stop all that. Let's focus on our own, product. We've always had our own product. It's just we kept rebranding it for other people and adding features for other people, focusing so much on them and not on our own brand. So by the end of, my journey there, we started focusing more on us. So I would say we're a company, but we were just trying to get a deal at that point. You're like, please buy our product. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that sounds a lot like Disrupt. I mean, we do some digital agency work kind of to keep the bills paid, keep the lights on. But then at the same time, we have our own products and initiatives and services that we're working on. So, it's definitely that startup life of constantly kind of evolving. So, okay, great. So you're there, you're with Mr. Fudge. Mr. Fudge is like your mentor and the person that gave you your first shot. And then when did you decide to move on and go to your next phase?
So Jeff Fudge, he ended up leaving after a while. And after, I know, after he left, I was like, what has his company become? I was like, who are you guys?
Oh my God, Willy Wonka left the chocolate factory? That's crazy.
I know. I'm like, what is this? So, I just started feeling like I didn't belong anymore. It was really apparent that my voice wasn't heard. He was always the reason why I was able to talk. And it just kind of down spiraled from there. That's when that whole, eyeglasses, skin color thing happened. And I'm like, so it's time to go. It's time to put in my resume. It's time to look for another company. So the second company I worked for was called Fine Technologies. I didn't work there long, but I wanted to make sure I got their product out the door. I got their product launched. And I went to my third company, which is the one I'm at right now, called IDT Corporation. And that was a transition as well. So, yeah.
Very cool. So the company got acquired by IDT.
Yes, exactly. We're called Live Ninja. Live Ninja has been like a pillar in Miami, doing a lot of community events, a thing called Waffle Wednesdays every Wednesday, where people will come out right to their office, talk about their initiative, talk about their new startup, and a lot of times get funding right in our, like on our couch, get funding in our office. And we, used to do a lot of things for the community. And after a while, of course, in 2017, we got acquired. And I remember like yesterday, one guy, his name was Frank. Frank's like, hey, Lenora, I follow you on Instagram. I don't know you in person, but I knew you went to WinCode. I went to WinCode. I just want to let you know that we're looking for a product designer. I know you'll be good for it. And I'm like, no, Frank, I'm ready to go for Miami. Frank, listen, Miami is not giving me what I need. It's time to go to California. It's time to start getting that real money, those real jobs. And he's like, no, I think you should come and join us. We just got acquired. We're looking for people to, work in that transitional period with their company, and we just got bought by a New York company. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go to the interview. Long story short, I went to the interview. The manager saw me, saw a little bit of my portfolio, hired me on the spot. And I'm like, here we go. Like, how did this happen? So, got hired on the spot, started working for IDT in 2017, March, and I've been there ever since.
That's so cool. So I actually know the guys over at IDT.
That's awesome.
I was the judge at their IDT hackathon last year, and really, really cool guys. They have a beautiful headquarter out here in Newark, New Jersey, like 5 minutes from Manhattan, and really, really great group of guys, super innovative. So they acquired the company, and then is it fully integrated with IDT now, or do you work on like a separate team, and what does your day-to-day look like?
So we're almost fully integrated. Our product is already kind of together. We're just doing our UX testing, going through doing QA testing on it, making sure things work exactly like we designed. And of course, that's been a trial because we're just working back and forth on bugs and things that we kind of skipped to make work for just prototyping purposes. But we need it to really work now. So it's like, all right, let's buckle down. Let's fix all the bugs that's been occurring. Let's really focus on getting it seamless, getting it to load faster. And that's kind of my day-to-day as of now. Before we actually got acquired, before, how can I say it? We got all the integration pieces working. It was more so of who are we now that we're IDT? Who are we trying to be? How do we come up with a brand for this new company and not think so Live Ninja? How do we think IDT now? So it was a lot of going to New Jersey, talking with Zali, talking with all the executives there, sitting down with them saying, what is Net2Phone? What is it? What do we need to do to make sure we're thinking correctly? And they wasted no time pulling us up to speed, telling us everything that we needed to know. And from there, the design team in Miami just sat together through plenty of meetings, going over different colors, different color schemes, branding it. I did a lot of illustrations for them, drawing out different characters just to create a brand narrative, onboarding experiences, everything that we could just to keep the brand more inviting and friendly. From there, we passed those things off to the developers. The developers started building it out. We started a little structure where it's more agile. So, we'll build out something, we'll pass it off as soon as we can. They'll build out the components, and we'll be still fixing things while, the components are being built. So we're trying to create that structure now where it's more component-based and not so much page or feature focused, trying to create components. So it's all a journey of just working together, honestly, trying to get, integrated with one another and everyone's systems.
Definitely. How big is your team?
Before, our team was maybe at least under 20 people. It's not that many of us. And then we got to IDT, cool. And then it's like 500. And I'm like, oh, goodness. How do we talk to everybody at once? And, going to Google Hangouts and everyone talking, I'm getting anxiety. Yeah. It's...
Wow. What's the most amount of people on one Hangout?
One time it was about maybe 25 people. And it was so many. Okay, you guys, let's mute all mics. Mute all mics. So I'm like, oh, my God. But it's fun though. It's been a fun journey. Yeah, very fun journey. Just trying to get used to everybody, used to everyone's personalities. Some people are like, I want things now. And then other ones are like, whenever you get a chance. So it's just like so many different kind of people you're working with, but we kind of mesh all well together. So it's been great.
Very cool. So who are like some of your inspirations, like role models, other people, other women in tech, other people that you look to and you're like, oh, 5 years down the line, like that's where I want to be. Who are your role models in the industry?
So definitely, I am a person that I found most of my inspiration through podcasts. So recently I passed through a podcast called designbetter.co, and there's a person, her name is Kim Williams, and she's I think a UX director. And for me, I don't know, I'm not used to seeing many diverse people in those top roles, those director roles. She works at Indeed. So I'm not used to seeing that. So I was just so impressed by her story. I, started researching her. I started to really get acclimated with her story, and I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Also, Helen Tran, she's a designer. I think she works for herself now, but she used to work at Spotify. And no, Shopify. I said that wrong. I always get those two mixed up. She works at Shopify now, and man, like the best designer I've ever seen. I love the way she creates UIs. I love her thought process. I love the way she thinks. She likes to bring in art a lot, architecture a lot, into a lot of her design work. So I really like watching her. And I think my biggest Miami, I will put it this way, my Miami inspiration is a woman named Felicia Hatchard. She is the person over Code Fever. She also runs Black Tech Week down here. And she's been doing so much when it comes to community building. I mean, she created a co-working space called Tribe. And it has nothing but J. Cole lyrics all around, Tupac lyrics. Like, it talks to my spirit, okay? Like, it's so great. She has all these things, and, it's so many things she's doing for the culture around tech. And if anyone can be my inspiration, it's definitely her. And those other two people. So, yeah.
Definitely. That's awesome. So I got like the last two questions here. What's next for you in your career and your business? Like what like future trends excite you? What are the things that you want to be sinking your teeth into next?
So, things that may not sound exciting to others is very exciting to me. I love the Airbnb problem. That problem where a diverse person or whoever will go and try to get an Airbnb, and the neighbors are like, yeah, you don't belong here. So I love that issue. I love the issue of, renting out your Airbnb, going there, then the owner, I guess, finds out that you're not exactly what they expected. And now you're in their home and they want to cancel your reservation. I don't know. I love those problems. Uber also has that problem. I had those issues in San Francisco where I tried to go with Lyft or Uber, whichever one that came. And when they saw who I was, they'll pull off. And I'll have to pay that $5 fee. Every time, it never failed. And it will take like 3 tries on a Lyft just to finally get someone who will take me up the street. So those kind of problems, I love. Because I don't think they don't have the typical answer. They're going to be a very research-driven type of answer, but I love those issues. So if I can get somewhere to tackle those problems, that's going to be the future for me. I would love to tackle those issues. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and they're good issues, and I think there is a problem when we put computers 100% in control of big services like housing and transportation, right? Because how do you like you just said it, you're getting the $5 fee, and now who do you complain to?
Exactly.
It's like that just to get to an Uber representative, it's like impossible. As far as Uber's concerned, no, we're charging you the $5. So yeah, it's definitely, those are definitely huge problems. And things that need to be addressed by a human, not by like an algorithm.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love that. And last question, I know we're running low on time. What does disrupt mean to you?
To me, I think it's changing all definitions, all status quo, and rebirthing something that wasn't meant to be reformed. I would put it that way. That's definitely my definition for disrupt.
That's awesome. Well, Lenore, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your insights and your passion. And yeah, definitely keep up the good work. I love your meetup. Inspiring young aspiring, uh, inspiring young aspiring people to get into tech. I think it's a huge additional problem to solve. So thank you for tackling it. We're kind of doing the same thing in Puerto Rico. We're building a coding school to teach kids how
That
to
is
code.
awesome. I just went there not too long ago. That's great.
Oh wow! So now you have an excuse to come back, right?
Exactly.
So I'm actually moving to Puerto
What?
Rico in less than 7 days.
Wow.
I'm moving to Puerto Rico full time to take this problem on. And we're having a huge tech conference September 19th on the anniversary of Hurricane Maria. The name of the event is Disrupt Puerto Rico, and we're having a huge tech conference. Going to have a bunch of really smart people come down to the island to try to solve the problem. And it's been a year later. The lights are back on, the power's back on. Now let's rebuild the economy.
Oh yeah, I'm with it. I just wrote that down. I'm like, we're gonna be there. Dev Noir will be there. Yes, let's do it.
Absolutely. So you're saying on the podcast on air that you will be there and you will speak on a panel.
Yes, I'm there.
Awesome. Awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, and then all the proceeds from the conference, they all go to fund the first version of the school. And I don't know if I've told you this yet or not, but the no one that lives in Puerto Rico has to pay tuition. It's a coding boot camp that's 100% free for anyone from Puerto Rico, and we're encouraging people from the United States to go on like a coding vacation where we combine an education with a vacation. We have them come down, and then any of their tuition money kind of sponsors the people from Puerto Rico to take the training. And at Disrupt, we feel that technology and innovation and entrepreneurship can help transform urban communities and underserved communities all around the world.
Agree.
Right? So how can we plant those seeds in Miami? Can we plant those seeds in Jamaica, in Haiti, in South America? Like all around the world. So I love what you're doing. If there's any way that we can support you, let me know. And I'm definitely going to take you up on your offer and send you the details to get you down to Puerto Rico.
I'm ready.
All right. Awesome. Lenore, thank you so much for being on the show. If people want to connect with you like on social media, where should they follow you? So
Lenora Porter, almost everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, it should be Lenora Porter. My website is www.lenoraporter.com, and I'll spell my name. It's Lenora. My last name is Porter, Porter.
Lenore, thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you.